Hello there and welcome to the candy wallpapered upstairs hallway of the dollhouse for another reading from The Secret Language of Birthdays by Gary Goldschneider and Hugh Stelfers for April 2nd, the day of the Idealist. That's right, and here at the top of the page is a visual representational image of the day of the Idealist. We have one visual representational image that is rather enigmatic. What could it be? I couldn't tell you. It looks to be some kind of tools, some abstract tools there that someone like, say, a cobbler of old time might use. The shape of shoe, if you like, the leather there. That said, I have no idea. I asked AI about it, and it said a bike horn. Pretty sure it wasn't a bike horn. It looks more like some Buddhist ornaments or bells, if you like, than a bike horn. That said, who's to say? I just like folks to kind of see what's on the page here in front of me, so you're part of the off-screen paradigm. That said, visual representational images tend to be rather enigmatic, so here we go. We got that going for us. That said, what is important around these here parts, not the visual representational image, but wishing those individuals born on April 2nd a happy birthday. That's right. So if your birthday is April 2nd, I just want to say happy birthday. But if this video finds you late, I don't know, days, weeks, months, whatever the case may happen to be, well, I hope you had a happy birthday in that instance. That said, a lot of times folks like to drop in randomly or more ideally to celebrate the day. So if that's the case, I just want to say hello, welcome, and I hope you enjoy yourself. Now, before we dive in with the redirect, something I like to do around these here parts, and that is roll some dice. That's right, it says the Diecast birthday broadcast, so I like to live up to the namesake. But if you've been here before and you know the score, well, hey, just jump ahead in the chapters. That's why I throw them in there if you want to get to the redirect. But I'll be here rolling dice because I do so more importantly for synchronicity's sake. And here I rolled us a 1 and a 2 for 3. All right, now what is synchronicity? You're probably wondering. Well, my friends, as I hear it told, the universe or the higher powers that be will oftentimes put things in our path to help us manifest our goals or realize our aspirations. But a lot of times as we're getting on in this life, we're very narrow or singular focused as we're doing the errands or getting on with the commute. So we may see things across our path, but we may not lend them a lot of credence, all right? But if we're going to start to see these signs the universe putting on our path, we're going to have to start learning to drop those blinders, all right? And giving some consideration to what's crossing our path. So this is an exercise to do as much, all right? How do we start identifying signs? Well, we need some kind of sign that's mutually agreed upon between us and the universe. That's right. Your daily numbers, all right? Now, you don't have to go with the numbers I rolled for you. The intention is there. But it's probably ideal if you want to try this out to get your own pair of dice so that you can ascribe directional values to number sets as well as time limits with which to go in those directions. But once you get all that established, just pick out a place near and dear to your heart or perhaps some place you've never explored before and then set out, all right? That said, like I mentioned, get those blinders off, all right? Because outside of your numbers creeping up across your path, you might start to notice a theme take to manifest itself there in front of you, all right? Let's take these abstract objects that are here in the book. Who's to say? Maybe you start seeing abstract artwork everywhere or objects that you can't place the purpose or function of. I don't know, just laying there in the gutter. Who's to say? That said, I would take such things to show you're on the right path, all right? That said, maybe get off this first directional value and time limit. You're not seeing a whole heck of a lot, all right? Hey, you know what? Just take it in stride. You're out there getting your steps in at the very least. But you know what? Maybe step back, take a look around. Maybe you notice something simple, like you're on, oh, what's this? 21st Avenue or 3rd Street. That's right. I would take that as a sign you're on the right path, all right? So maybe get your dice out, roll again your directional value and time limit, and head on out. Maybe at the end of this particular time value, you find yourself in front of a building with, what's this? Oh, a 21 in the address or whatever particular dice number you rolled, all right? So some synchronicity setting in. And what is this building, you say? Well, maybe it just happens to be an art gallery. That's right. You're looking in the window and it's got what that? Yeah, what's that? It's got abstract artwork in there, all right? And maybe it's closed down, so you're like, shoot, I can't get in there and see what's going on. Or maybe no sooner you go down to roll your dice, you get the first directional value going, hey, maybe someone approaches and they're unlocking the door. And like, hey, you can't be shooting craps here in front of my art gallery. Hey, you know what? It's just show them your dice, show them this video perhaps, let them know what's going on. Hey, it's my birthday, or, my birthday was a few weeks ago. I'm out here trying to shake up some synchronicity. Let them know that apt to tell you it's crazy. And maybe you're apt to say, no crazier than abstract artwork. I don't know, maybe you got the knee-jerk reaction there to kind of defend yourself. Or perhaps they have to tell you it's even crazier because April 2nd is their birthday too. All right, that's right. Hey, I often like to use that example because, hey, you know what? There's another little bit of synchronicity. And maybe they're only at the art gallery to pick up a handbag they forgot yesterday, all right? And maybe they show you around a little bit because they find it interesting. Maybe you made a new friend. But all this to say, maybe they join you on the journey, which would be great because, as I hear it told also, the more people who are focused on the same thing, you're apt to beget greater results. All right, so there you go. Maybe it's just start bringing in more synchronicities. All right. That said, that's the thing in a nutshell, all right? So get out there, let the universe show you it's with you on your path. Start picking up on synchronicities or coincidences, if you like. Make some new friends, whatever the case may happen to be, and let the universe blow your hair back, all right? That said, I think you get the idea, so let's get in with the birthday reading. Your month is April, your day is the 2nd, your sign is 11 to 13 degrees Aries of the Aries I period specifically, the last day of it as it turns out, and your quality and element is Cardinal fire. All right, April 2nd, the day of the Idealist. Those born on April 2 are extremely idealistic in their approach to life. And largely because of this characteristic, they may have problems getting where they want to go in their careers. The sometimes naive view of the world embraced by their childlike nature does not always complement the hard driving urge to succeed. And only after finding their purpose in life and accepting the limitations of their capabilities, perhaps even reconciling themselves to a lower station, are they able to utilize their considerable energy to the fullest. And until they reach this point, however, they may well flounder. And people born on April 2 are usually family-oriented, particularly men. And for such an April 2 man, his home is his castle, and his family his court. And this can create problems from time to time, particularly if one of his children do not feel comfortable in the role of subject. And April 2 people are forever talking about their ideals, their dreams, and their visions. And it often takes tremendous patience on the part of those around them to handle their idealism, particularly colleagues who are much more pragmatic and regard such thinking as being of the fairy tale variety. And because April 2 people can exist mentally in another world, their honesty and single-mindedness often causes others to misunderstand them and their motives. And due to their purity of vision, those born on this day often find it difficult to compromise and regard a lack of understanding or agreement from a fellow worker as betrayal. And often well loved by others, April 2 people must be careful not to drive friends to distraction with their ideas. They must learn to compromise on something mostly foreign to them. And they too often see the world in black and white terms, an alienating stance, the book says. But because they are so human, so uncalculating, open, and giving, they will be quickly forgiven their anger and minor day-to-day emotional difficulties. In addition, they often espouse the cause of the underdog or the downtrodden, which can earn them the animosity of the powerful, but also friends and admirers. And the emotions of others often bewilder April 2 people, who sometimes need to run up against crises, difficulties, and even disasters to be able to recognize similar emotions in themselves. And those born on this day can be oblivious to what others think of them. And consequently, it may be a long time before they come to realize that not everyone appreciates their extreme, albeit pure, viewpoints. And if branded as troublemakers, they may take the resulting decisions made against them rather hard. All right, very particularly interesting birthday breakdown today for a whole host of reasons we'll get to here shortly. But this one was a rather novel birthday breakdown for a lot of interesting reasons. I'd say it was rather well rounded out. In a lot of cases, all the way back to the beginning of Capricorn, the birthday breakdowns have been rather hyper-focused. All right, they kind of drill down on the theme and expand from there. Here, I would say they kind of did that with the theme of being kind of resigned to your ideas and how that's cooked up, but they also dove into a lot of other ideas there with how you might be seen within a family, etc. So, particularly interesting, rounded out day. Though they didn't necessarily get into relationships too much, that tends to be the linchpin for me for a well-rounded out day. So it kind of wasn't baked in there too much with that respect. But hey, let's dive in with a little bit of a commentary I like to provide, see what we have to say about today here. April 2nd, the day of the idealists. All right, you're said to be highly idealistic in your life approach. And the reading claims for this reason you may encounter issues with getting where you want to go in life. All right, specifically in your career, but very possibly in any respect, I would argue, and all things being equal. And despite this, you're purported to also potentially possess a childlike naivete and or a worldview, if you like, that doesn't necessarily help what is purported to be your hard driving urge to succeed. And considering so many individualistic individuals born in this period who also possess these traits, it may be the first instance of an explanation for the conflict and frustrations that have arguably pervaded through for so many of the Aries I individuals. That also extends to this supposition toward finding a passion and accepting your limitations and reconciling yourself to a lower station so as to better utilize your time and your energy. So either this hard driving urge of yours is so strong that it far surpasses that of others in the period. So you specifically need to reassess what's realistically within your grasp, or such an idea wasn't a consideration to the authors before today. All right, it's very interesting because I saw these things lining up in the days previous. So it's like, why didn't it get recommended for them? But these are all novel considerations in my mind, even if they're rather hard to hear. Nobody wants to sacrifice their dreams, right? But there you go. But for a period that's ostensibly defined by such sweeping similarities, maybe more so than any other period I've encountered, it's crazy that this is the first time that this has been suggested for the period to maybe reassess things. All right. Other differences are this family oriented, home is a castle, and family is your court dynamic. All right. Also, you perhaps forever discussing your ideals, dreams, and visions. That hasn't really come up for this period, even once, I don't think. It's interesting for another reason I'll also broach here shortly. But so too this difficulty to compromise on your visions, your commitment to your work, and this isolating yourself to do so. Well, that particular dynamic runs rife throughout the period. Let's see here. But being loved by others comes up often as well. But for many, they have little to no concern for as much, very interestingly. A dynamic I've found rather ironic. But your human, otherwise innocent qualities endear you to others. It's also a rarity, but it has popped up in the period. But this waxing on about the underdog and it's garnering friends, but also animosity, completely new. That hasn't come up now here in the period before. So it's interesting, but I would also say understandable. But I would argue that you can cut a particularly distinctive dynamic considering all these differences when juxtaposed with all your Aries I peers, regardless all the similarities. And so I would say it's a rather similar aspect in those respects, but very unique in its own way. All right. So, and that's been another through line theme for this period. So many people sharing so many similarities, but they're realized in wholly different ways. So I would say that you stand apart in a lot of different ways, specifically with this dreamer aspect here. I haven't really seen that pop up. That said, that's what I had to say about the breakdown. It's a particularly interesting day, and for reasons we'll get to here shortly as we move on into your numbers and your planets. All right, here we go. Those born on the second day of the month are ruled by the number 2 and the moon. And the moon generally grants a romantic and imaginative nature. And April 2 people born under the aggressive sign of Aries, which is ruled by the planet Mars, come under a moon-Mars influence that lends charm, ambition, and sexual drive. particularly to men, it says. And if someone ruled by the number 2 also happens to have been a second child, he or she may have been hidden and protected and spared some of the strong emotions directed by the parents toward the firstborn. And those ruled by the number 2 are often good co-workers and parents, or partners rather, maybe parents as well, but are rarely cut out to be leaders, all right? And so April 2 people can encounter difficulties if they aspire to dominant roles. All right, this was a particularly personalized numbers and planets entry. A lot of the times I'd say the authors try to do so, but sometimes it's kind of just a copy-paste job where they plug in their respective planets and their influences. They don't really say too much, but here I would say is pretty personalized for a couple different reasons. That said, let's get back into the commentary so I can espouse on why that is. All right, let's see here. The number 2 and the passive reflective moon, an entry that almost always says lends to being a better partner or a co-worker instead of a leader, and they put that down towards the bottom there. Usually they lead with that. But what else do they have here? The moon being described as generally granting romantic and imaginative natures. That's largely novel. It may always be the case, but they never really mention it. But here for you, they brought it up. But what makes this even more interesting is you're discussing your dreams, your ideals, and your visions ad nauseum, as they said in the breakdown. And as I mentioned earlier, I say that that's a specifically interesting trait for you. And I say that because that's usually a trait that's possessed by people who are ruled by the planet of Neptune, the ruler of dreams and visions, all right? Also higher ideals. And the moon is similar in a lot of respects, but usually from what I've seen, a distant second. All right, so Mars with its god of warlike aggression and adventurous drive, I don't know, maybe in some ways it just bolsters this, makes it a lot more powerful or aggressive in those respects, and kind of takes the moon up to Neptune powers, all right, making it a closer second, if you like. But in addition to providing this charm, ambition, and sexual drive, this element with regard to being a second child is also a rare inclusion. And this actually came up this period one other time, though it was with regard to being more of a mental type versus the first child as a more physical type. So this aspect of being removed from the strong emotions of the parents, it's a completely new novel notion and dynamic that's been cooked in here. That said, nothing to do with avoiding so I said that, the emotional aspect of the parents there. So like I said, pretty interesting thing to dive into. The numbers and planets doesn't normally dive into that kind of thing. I would say the first, second born child type thing is usually reserved for something they would go over in the breakdown. But here nor there, they personalized it for you, added some value. So particularly interesting, I thought. So like I said, Mars is very hyper aggressive, adventurously ambitious kind of planet. Seems to bolster things in a more powerful way. So there you go with that drive for ambition there to rise to the top. But with the moon coming in and being rather passive or reflective, and I don't know if it's just reflective from things coming in at you or if you're considering such things in a reflective manner. Who's to say their definition of as much? It may explain why you might have to maybe resign yourself to some of the more hard, fast realities. Not necessarily the things that you're dreaming after. Who's to say? In any event, that's what I'd say about your numbers and your planets. Let's move on to your tarot. That's right. One of the more eclectic of the New Age metaphysical ideologies. But hey, it's here in the book. Sometimes these things line up particularly well with the breakdown, insofar as sometimes they seem to inform the breakdown. So let's see if that happens to be the case here today. And then we just leave it in the book and move on, all right? We don't have to take it home with us and start dealing out the cards to say, predict our future, or however they're used. So let's get into it here. The tarot, all right? The second card of the major arcana is the priestess. It's shown seated on her throne, calm and impenetrable. And she is a spiritual woman who reveals hidden forces and secrets and empowering us with that knowledge. Favorable qualities of the card are silence, intuition, reserve, and discretion. Negative values are secretiveness, mistrust, and indifference, and inertia. All right. Copy paste job here with this one today. They didn't add anything to it. Sometimes they'll button it with a little bit of a, this serves as a great example of something to live up to, that kind of thing, but nothing in that respect here today. So what I have to say, let's see if I can throw some more value into it or something to consider. All right, the priestess for revealing hidden forces and secrets and empowering others with that knowledge. Ostensibly, I would say that could be you relating your dreams and your visions to others. I would surmise that that's kind of where that draw might line up. Though that might be a rather fickle argument, all right? Though doing the work to accept a more pragmatic realization of your dreams, even if that means resigning yourself to a lower station, as they said, that's rather sobering, I would argue, but that probably has a lot of knowledge that comes with doing such a thing. What do you gain from having to do that, giving up on your dreams a little bit? So what do you gain from that experience? And appropriately, maybe sharing that experience with others helps to, that aspect of heeding the knowledge, if you like. I would also say might give other dreamers an opportunity to understand how to avoid the depression that's cooked in with having to resign yourself to more hard, fast realities. Then you're heading the clouds after those ambitions that might not be very realistic. What can you impart to others with the struggle of enduring that? I'd say that's some knowledge baked in there too. What else do we have here? Positives of discretion, intuition, reserve, and I would also argue this serves as an idea to keep in mind when the desire to share your ideas arises, all right? But the negatives of secretiveness, mistrust, and inertia and indifference, that might be the result of giving up on said dreams. And ultimately, I say don't give up on your dreams, all right? Just find a way to measure them, make them a little bit more practical, all right? And I would say it's when you start giving up on those things that the inertia sets in, the indifference to things in life. You get rather hardened by, just life seeming to be not in your favor. I don't think that's the case. It's just we got to find a different way to synthesize the things we want out of life with what's presented with us. How do we make it fit? So not easy work to do, but it's work that's got to be done if you do want to realize those dreams within the confines of your situation. So that's where the work comes in. So that said, I don't know if this was the most apt card, but I would say in a variety of ways it did line up if we just looked at it in a certain perspective. Some of these, you can't even do that. It's just these things fly in the face of anything that lined up in the breakdown. But like I said, in other circumstances, particularly in this particular period, I've started to call them keystone cards because it was like it just informed the breakdown writ large, just sweeping generalities in those respects. But it still seemed to inform the breakdown. Here for you, a little more fickle, like I said, but hey, I don't know. Maybe it speaks to you in no small part perfectly. I don't know. That said, that's been your tarot. Let's move on to your health. All right, here we go. Those born on this day do well with moderate physical exercise, and this will serve to ground them in their bodies and offer a respite from the highly mental world they inhabit. And the active imaginations of April 2 people can run them ragged. They must be very careful of their nerves, and also they must be mindful of repressed anger, or it will surely lead to depression. Repeated frustrations can force them in extreme cases to live entirely in a dream world, with disastrous psychological consequences for themselves and those close to them. Physically, those born this day must learn to heed their body's messages. Pain, long-standing discomfort, back and neck problems should regularly be attended to by an expert. Regular checkups are extremely important to them as they often try to ignore chronic problems until it is too late. Now, where diet is concerned, April 2 people love to eat and can put on weight unless they limit their intake of dairy products, alcohol, as well as meat. Well, all right. Particularly interesting health entry today. I would say it was rather personalized. It kind of bucked a little bit of the convention of how they typically arrange these things, just like the numbers and planets entry there today. That said, what I have to say about the health, there was a lot baked in here. I'm surprised we're not in the kitchen today with that in that respect. That said, let's dive into the notes. All right. Moderate exercise mentioned to ground you. Again, like a very Neptune kind of recommendation here. So the Mars must just be bolstering those Neptune-like powers of the moon. Mars influence usually lends to a vigorous kind of exercise, combative sports, sometimes demanding exercise, ostensibly to excise the god of war like energy. But the moon, I would say, with its Neptune like qualities in this respect, I would say it explains why to bring that down a little bit. Also, interestingly, in this period, a lot of the people are prone to accidents because they're so dedicated to the thing they pursue. And I would say that applies to exercise as well. You know, they're getting after that vigorous exercise. They might be going too hard, and you don't want to be snapping biceps or throwing out your back in this respect here, because that was brought up here in those regards. So that's probably why they told you not to get vigorous with it there, I would argue, because that's been carrying through the period. So it's that hard, fast reality there for the people who are hard driven. Got to be careful. All right, what else do we have here? Bring your head down out of the clouds again with the Neptune aspect. Mind your nerves with the imagination. This is very interesting because it is the imagination facet. A lot of times the stress and the nerves is baked in with the Aries I because they're so dedicated to the work. They're isolated. They're getting after task, and they're avoiding everything else that's going into life, and they don't get out in the world enough. But the stress of it wears on the nerves. So common through line with that in that respect, but for you, for a different reason. Also, this, what do they call it? Beware of your dreams and getting lost in the dream world. Highly Neptune themed aspect to keep consideration of. Very interesting. It comes up for the moon. They didn't warn against escapism here, but that's often where that comes up. When it's said in the same line, the same breath, if you like. So common issue in respect to Neptune. So if you're into diving into the astrology, maybe look at Neptune, see what that's all about. You might think it lines up perfectly. There you go, Mars bolstering that moon, ostensibly. They also warned against repression leading toward depression. Makes sense, I would say. So find someone to share those things that you're worried about. We just got to be measured about how much we share. I got to leave a little bit of mystery in there. We'll find someone you trust, someone who you can wax poetic about those things ad nauseum, and they're fine with it because maybe you let them do the same thing. And you never know, they might start to feel like, hey, I'm bothering the heck out of this person. And I would say that's motivation to start figuring those things out kind of on your own. And so when you come back to them to talk about the same thing, maybe you've made some progress. I don't know. Sounds like a therapist. I'd say it's a little more self-therapy if you don't got the coin to be going to seeing a professional. That said, don't get lost in dreaming, all right? Try to measure that. At the very least, I would say, if you don't want to give up on your dreams, tamper it back a little bit so you're not getting lost in those dreams, if you like, in that dream world, they said. Also, they said limit foods. All right, that hasn't come up too often. And they also mentioned specific objects to cut out of your diet there, the alcohol and the meats and what are dairy products. That's a very, that was the last period that came up quite a bit because their body area was the lymphatic system. I think it was Aquarius there. It was probably Pisces, as a matter of fact. But for you, the Aries body areas is the head and the spine and the cerebral cortex, I think is what it said. So a lot of times tooth decay is something folks got to be mindful of in this period. They didn't mention that for you, but hey, something to keep in mind. Take care of your teeth there, all right? That said, that's been your health. So let's move on to some advice. All right, I know we got in a little bit of advice there, but with the health, but let's get into the advice that they have for you here in the book. Force yourself to be realistic and don't live in a dream world. All right. Idealism is admirable, but it doesn't pay the bills. Listen to others even when they voice negativity. Their criticism may be valuable if you give it some thought. All right. Hey, I think we said all those things, but I wouldn't say it's any less valuable. They're just kind of being redundant. And sometimes it takes hearing something 41 different times before we finally cotton to as much. Or it has to be said in a variety of different ways before we finally go, oh, now it makes sense. And I would argue that that's what they do here in the book a lot of times. In any event, let's see what I had to say about what they had to say. And bear with me, my writing is tiny, so I might flounder here a bit. Let's get into it. They said, force yourself to be realistic and don't live in your dream worlds, all right? Let's say they you need to cultivate some self-awareness, all right? This is a huge through-line theme for the book, as well as moderation and balance. And I would say those things, even though they weren't directly mentioned here for you today, they apply, all right? So really drill down on when it's appropriate and who you can share such things with. Got to be measured about who we can share our ideas with. Dreams are important, like I said, but escapism can be a kind of detriment to living in the real world, obviously there. Measure, balance, cultivate self-awareness, like I said, and practicality as well, all right? Almost all of those tie together in no small part. Aries I's have that stuff in spades, the practicality. I know it wasn't much mentioned here, ostensibly. Maybe it was kind of read between the lines a little bit. You've got that power inside you with the Mars there. So don't think it's outside of your grasp, I would say. What else do we have here? I reckon, yeah, you've got that bit of Mars in you as well. All right, listen to others. Their criticism may be valuable. You may provide you that bit of practicality you don't think you're capable of, all right? Just measuring that criticism. And be objective about it. Take all the emotion out of it if you can. Or just hear it. Try to saddle the emotion. Let that creep up later, all right? Let's see. Also gives them a chance to talk, all right? And a lot of times making friends is something that comes easy to Aries I's, apparently. But they have little to no concern for as much, surprisingly. And maybe that's kind of why. They don't really care so much, so they're able to kind of hear what people are saying or give the illusion that they're listening, and then people feel more, indentured to them, I suppose. I don't know. But so yeah, listen, ask questions too, show some interest, ostensibly, even if you don't have any, I would say. If nothing else, gives them an opportunity to be seen and heard, all right? And then you might be more open to what they want to hear you discuss, I would say. But still show some kind of reserve in that respect, okay? Take it from me, I can go on forever about my dreams, and it's just too much from what I've found here in life, all right? It can be exciting, too, when anybody shows even just a little bit of interest, but we need to be measured about it because they might just be being polite. And if they're not, hey, you know what? You're not going on about it ad nauseum. Puts a little bit of air of mystery into it, so it makes it more captivating. What aren't they talking about? I would say that factors into it too. And I think it was even brought up one of these days in the past week. I can't remember when, but I remember the air of mystery being brought up. So that said, that's your advice. Be measured with your dreams. That's, like I said, though, don't give up on them, all right? That's what makes life tolerable, all right? So that said, that's been your advice. Let's move on to your meditation. That's right. It's your birthday. You get something to think about. Here we go. By keeping alive to what is happening, we live in the present. All right, I like this one. Don't know why it applies to you, but here nor there. One more time. By keeping alive to what is happening, we live in the present. All right. It's your birthday, your meditation. Even if I had some kind of spin or interpretation on as much, I wouldn't give it to you because that would kind of defeat the purpose of it being a meditation. It's your birthday. That's just for you. That said, that's your meditation in a can. Let's move on to your strengths and your weaknesses. That's right. Let's see where you got the girth and where you otherwise atrophied. Sometimes a lot of these things we know them, but sometimes we can be surprised. Let's get into it here. Your strengths, it says you're honest, you're sincere, you're hardworking. All right. I think we knew those. We knew those in no small part. But your weaknesses, oh, what are they here? Your weaknesses. All right. We got naive, repressed, and unaware. All right. You know what? These have been coming up quite a bit this period. Again, the similarities is crazy. You know, it's, a lot of times these things change all the time in any specific period. Here for this period, they just been popping up. So you get it. All right. So that said, I often like to say that our strengths are going to help us improve upon our weaknesses. But I also like to argue that our weaknesses can be strengths within their own regard. All right. So let's try to make my case here. I might flounder a bit. Let's give it a shot here. Said you're honest, sincere, and hardworking. How's it going to help us improve upon our weaknesses? Well, honesty. All right. Hey, I would say, if you churn that in on yourself there, you know what, you're honest with yourself. This is a weakness, and you know what, that's half the battle. Some people are, what do you call it, they're in denial about as much. They think they got all the strength in the world, or they hear that a weakness, they're not objective about it, they get all emotional. Hey, you're honest about it, so you know what the problem is. Sincere, I would also say turn that in on yourself. Find a nice humble way of getting after figuring it out. I say it also dovetails with being honest about it, being sincere about it with yourself. This is a weakness, so what are we going to do to get after it? Hardworking as well. Well, hey, that just makes all the sense in the world. You're going to find your weakness, identify it, be honest with yourself, take the emotion out of it, maybe be a little bit more of a soft touch with, you know, coming to terms with as much, being sincere, I would say. And then you're going to get after it, all right? Get the hammer out, start chipping the stones away on the weaknesses. I would also say sincere kind of endures you to other people, so you can draw them in and have them help you with your weakness if it's something that you need some help with from someone else. That said, what's the case to be made for your weaknesses being strengths? Let's see what we can do here with naive, all right? I would say it allows you to have a childlike approach to the world. Curiosity is huge. A lot of that goes out the window once you become an adult, because you know what, life starts breaking you down, all right? There's no room for having that childlike wonder or the curiosity about the world. But I would say if we're going to keep expanding, you've got to have some of that curiosity into it. Also, being naive, hey, you might not hear everything that's coming in at you, and sometimes you got to fill in the blanks about what's going on, and therefore you're going to come up with more creative ideas. I would say that also applies to being unaware. All right, you're just not all there, so you got to play catch up a lot of times, and in doing so, again, you're going to come up with better ideas that weren't necessarily on the chalkboard, if you like, to help fill in the blanks. So that's one good thing about being unaware. Repressed, though, how is that a strength? Well, you know what? I would say if we're able to have that particular gear, we should know when to access it, because if it's something that's just a knee-jerk reaction, it's on all the time, if you like, we need to figure out how to turn it off and turn it on when it's needed. The situation is important. Maybe we got those emotions going up, it's going to get in the way of the big project coming up. Bottle them up, all right, just for the time being, so that you can get the work done. But then later, get rid of that stuff. You don't want to bottle it up and get the nerves going, right? So I would say it's a strength in that respect, if you know how to turn it on and off. As far as unaware, you're not affected by conventional thinking either, because you're just not paying attention to it. So I would say it's a strength in those regards. You can think more abstract, like the visual representational image, if you like. What could these be for? You know, you're going to find a purpose for such things, all right? Because you're unaware of what they are otherwise, all right? Or you're naive to them. What else do they have here? It serves as a chance to catch an example. Oh yeah, unaware. Okay, if we realize we're unaware of something, we understand we're oftentimes unaware of something, we're gonna know when we're unaware, and then we can start to change the dynamic. What do I got to learn about this to play catch up? Or, you know, a lot of times some people they're not aware they're unaware. All right, kind of a catch-22 type thing. How do we know when we're not aware of something? Hey, if we know it's baked into the pie that we are generally unaware of things, then we can start to be cognizant of as much, all right, and then start to improve upon it. Identify when that's the case, or when it happens most often, so that we can rectify. Anyway, I think you get the idea. Your weaknesses can be strengths in their own regard, and our strengths can help us improve upon them. That said, I also like to argue, don't get rid of your weaknesses altogether, because they're part of who you are, all right? So I think you get the idea. Start improving upon yourself and using the things that you know people would see as a weakness to further endure you to the world. That said, that's been your strengths and your weaknesses. Let's move on to those born on this day. And when we get into those born on this day, not only do we get to see who shares your company, but I like to use it as an opportunity to start thinking about our passions. Because a lot of times I get out in the world and I ask folks what they do, more importantly if they like it, and they don't. And I think it's just because they don't have something to do in their off time, a purpose to start striving after. And I think it's having a purpose that keeps us committed to life, keeps us striving after, going after things, that curiosity, all right? So I like to use this as an opportunity to try to inspire folks to drill down on some way of, you know, putting the bug in your ear to start carving out the time and putting in the energy to figuring out a passion, all right? Because like I said, I think it's valuable. It's fulfilling, keeps us striving after the goal, whatever that may happen to be, all right? That said, if you already got a passion, you know what? The hat I'm not wearing is off to you. But let's just see who shares your company in that respect. But for everybody else, let's see if we can't be inspired. All right, here we go. We start off with Hans Christian Andersen, the Danish fairy tale writer, playwright, poet, and he gave the world The Ugly Duckling and The Emperor's New Clothes. We also have Émile Zola, a French social protest novelist, and is responsible for a work by the name of Germinal. We also have Alec Guinness, the British film, stage, and TV actor. We also have Max Ernst, the German expressionist, surrealist painter and sculptor. He lived in a dream world there. We also have W.P. Chrysler, the car manufacturer. Giovanni Casanova, a lover and memoirist. There we go, make sure you say that right. We also have Marvin Gaye, the soul singer-songwriter. And we also have Camille Paglia, P-A-G-L-I-A, Paglia, probably, a feminist writer and responsible for Sexual Persona. We also have Dana Carvey, the comedian, film, and TV actor in the Saturday Night Live fame. Emmylou Harris, a country singer. We have Rochelle Owens, a playwright. Georgie Geyer, G-E-Y-E-R, however that might be pronounced, a woman columnist, it says here. We also have Sergei Gainsbourg, a French singer and an entertainer. We also have Buddy Ebsen, a TV and a film actor. Larry Coryell, a jazz guitarist. Tony Clark, a British award-winning EMI sound engineer and a producer. And we also have Jack Webb, the TV actor of Dragnet fame. And we also have Rita Gam, an actress. Joseph Bernardin, Archbishop of Chicago. We also have Sir Jack Brabham, a Australian auto racer and a 3-time Formula One champion. All right, I would say there were some dreamers in there for sure. Idealists, hey, who's to say? We'd have to know more, right? That said, like I said, it's just all about trying to stir up the passions there, I feel like. So if I could put the bug in the air to start carving out the time, to put in the energy to figure that out, if they're not in your life at this particular venture, well, then my work here is done, all right? So get out there and start chasing after a dream, all right? Sounds like you might have that well in hand, or maybe you just focus it too much on dreams. Who's to say? Drill down on one, give it a shot. That said, I know it's a big-ass tall order to take inspiration from others, so you know what? I just hope that you can get after it. That said, that essentially rounds out your birthday reading. I know I butchered a lot of names in there, so let's make up for it on my side of things. It's not done in malice, it's just hooked on phonics isn't the best tool for foreign names for me, or just reading in general. But like I said, that essentially rounds out your birthday reading. Except to say your season is spring, your sign once again is Aries, of the Aries I period specifically, and your quality and element is Cardinal fire. And I know a lot of those things might not mean anything to you, but I got videos on the channel if you're interested in diving in further and seeing what all that means. That said, this has been April 2nd, the day of the Idealist, from The Secret Language of Birthdays by Gary Goldschneider, used Elfers. I have an affiliate link for this book down in the description if you're interested in picking up your own copy and get through it quicker than I could for you, what with the commentary there. This thing makes an excellent coffee table book if you're ever in the market for something to help you get the ice broken at a party, say. I don't know, a lot of Aries I folks are isolationists, so I don't see themselves holding parties, but you know what? Your homies, your castle, and your people, your court, you might just want to hold some interesting court, all right? And this book's going to help you get it done, all right? That said, not altogether all too important, the book there, but what is important, like I said at the top, wishing you a happy birthday. So once again, happy birthday, all right? And for everybody else who joined us here to celebrate, hey, I hope you enjoyed yourselves, and we see you for your birthday reading. That said, I just want to thank you for the pleasure of your time. It was a privilege to celebrate your birthday with you. And I've left a personal message below the affiliate link, so if you're interested in checking that out, give it a look-see. But that said, before I take us out, a little reminder here, your daily numbers, all right? You're 1 and you're 2 for a 3, or whatever you happen to roll. Get out there and let the universe show you it's with you on your side, all right? See, taste, touch, smell, intuit, just a little bit of the magic that might just so happen to find you on your path. I think you understand why I brought it up. That's right. So in any event, keep dreaming, but be resigned to think that you might have to adjust your expectations. That's what I would take from what was said today, all right? Once again, happy birthday. Take care of yourselves.